here we go. I'm going to go through these, and I want you to put thumbs up if you agree with it. If I call out, you know, A, if you agree with it, I'm asking you to put your thumb up. If you disagree with it, I'd like you to put your thumbs down. And if you think, I'm not sure, or it depends, you're allowed a sideways thumb, okay? So here we go. Ooh, not sure why that's there. One slide missing. What do you think of the first one? Do you agree with that one? Anybody? It's a lot of thumbs down, I think, for that one. I am sorry, that's my mistake. Okay, second one then. A formative test is not really a type of test. It's what happens as a result of the test. Okay? So, thumbs? Where are you? Agree with that? Disagree with that? There's a lot of thumbs going up. There's one or two sideways ones. I agree with that one on the whole. Formative assessment, if you remember that cycle, the cycle you got on page 1 in your pack, what's happening there is the students, it's the feedback bit underneath in that diagram. It's the improvement that's brought about to the students' constructs by the feedback, which makes it formative. Formative means you're forming an improvement. Yeah? You're forming the construct. You're changing it. And so it's not really just a type of test. I mean, you might have an intention to improve students' performance, but if you don't ask them to do anything with the questions they've got wrong, I mean, what some teachers do, for example, is they say, do this quiz, the students do the quiz, and then they say, look at which ones you got wrong and ask some mates about it to find out what the right answer is, because you're doing this quiz again tomorrow, but you're only doing the ones you got wrong. That's formative. You're using the quiz to find faults and fix them. Yeah? You're not giving them a quiz and say, you got 6 out of 10, you got 4 out of 10, you got 9 out of 10, you got 7 out of 10. I put that in my mark book. That's not actually, that's weighed the pig, it's not fattened it. Okay, next one. Feedback can lead to a lowering of effort, to abandoning a goal, or to reduced aspiration. Agree, disagree? Thumbs? There's quite a lot of, there's a few sideways, there's quite a few people not putting their thumbs up at all. I think on the whole, these things do depend on context, but when you give students, if you give students feedback, which is a grade, then the student might get a string of poor grades and think, I'm giving up on this. I can't do this bloody stuff. I'm crap at maths or writing or drawing or whatever it is they're expected to do. So it can lead to a lowering effort. It can lead to abandoning a goal. It can lead to reduced aspiration. But the sort of feedback that does that is discouraging feedback, which is not necessarily graded, but it might involve a grade. But if the student's always being criticized and never getting any encouragement, or never being told how to improve, then, you know, and making them complacent, then there's a problem there. Formative assessment requires a test, a quiz, or other formal exercise. Can we have thumbs on that one? I think nearly all thumbs I can see are down, and I think you're absolutely right. That's not true. You don't have to set a formal test or quiz or whatever. When a teacher says of a class, what do we mean by post-operative care or something? You know, and gets an answer from a student and says, thank you. Anybody agree with that? And everybody says, yes, they agree. That's formative. The teacher's discovering whether the students understand what post-operative care means, yeah? It's formative because you're trying to form the understanding. You're checking, what have I got to build on here? Have they got a firm idea of post-operative care before I start using that concept to explain something else? Last one, if the teacher allows some students not to participate, they are widening the achievement gap. The weak ones will get weaker relative to the more able ones, and the gap will get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the statement. Do we agree with it or not? Thumbs? Do you want a bit of time to think about this one? There's a few disagrees. A few sideways, quite a few in agreement there. Okay, I agree with that one, actually. And a lot of people, there's a subtle point here. There's a subtle point here that formative assessment, improving students' understanding, has behind it an assumption that ability and knowledge and skill is learned and not innate, not a gift, not an IQ, not a talent you're born with and you bring in, either you can do it or you can't. A lot of students believe either you can do it or you can't, either you can draw or you can't, yeah? A lot of them believe that, I've got an IQ which nobody can change, and I can't improve my performance above a certain level because I've got this sort of thing in my brain that I've got from my parents, that their capacities are genetically fixed and there's nothing they can do about them. And so that's the problem, one of the problems with grading, actually. When you grade students and they get poor grades, they say, well, I haven't got the maths gene, have I? There's no point in me trying. There's no point in me going to support on this because I can't bloody do it, can I? I haven't got the maths gene. It's my bloody mum's fault. Look at that. Yeah? We mustn't allow that attitude to... It's not true, by the way. The proportion that genetics gives to ability, talent, gift, and so on is reducing all the time that people research it. And many researchers, like Erickson, say it's near zero. And that almost all ability, gift, talent comes from deliberate attempts to improve over a long period of time. And there's a tremendous research body that would back that idea up. And there's bits about on my website and in both my books about Erickson's research review. Remember, reviews are the most authoritative on this. But anyway, what we're saying here is, by the way, what I've just done with you is I've given you some questions, right, wrong questions, at the end of teaching you something in order to help you to sort of make sure you really have understood a very difficult concept. Could you make use of that in your own teaching? These are called diagnostic questions. Could you make use of of that sort of stick some statements up, do the students agree, disagree? Best, though, to do it not the way I did it, but to get the students to do it by themselves first, then compare answers, because they're bound to disagree on one of them, then get them to argue about it, and then you go through. Just give you a minute. Could you make more use, or some use, of diagnostic questions? I forgot to describe why number one is wrong, so let me do that now. It looks superficially like it's true. Any assessment that occurs before a summative assessment is a formative one. But Dylan William and others who look at this say, well, no, you could have an assessment which is before the final summative assessment on a topic or a course or whatever, where the teacher had, maybe even had an intention that the students would improve their understanding, but it didn't do that. It just measured it. So if I'm halfway through a unit, yeah, I set students a quiz, yeah? So it's an assessment before the summative assessment. They've got another 2 weeks to go before when they do the final assignment that will, or the final exam or whatever. I set them a quiz, yeah? And what I do with that quiz is I give them some questions, they do them, and then I say, okay, I'm going to go around now and get your mark, yeah? 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8, 9 out of 10. Okay, that's great, quiz done. Do try and improve though, won't you? On to the next topic. I've just weighed a lot of pigs, and I haven't actually fattened them, really. Some of the more dedicated students will go away and try and work out why they got the ones wrong, they got wrong, and try and improve. But many of the students will just say, oh, I only got 6, And they won't be looking at the 4 they got wrong. Other teachers will say, okay, let's do this quiz. And then they'll say, okay, we're going to do this quiz again tomorrow, but only the ones you did wrong. Find out from a mate what the correct answer is if you haven't got it already. Maybe I'll give you a minute to go around and find somebody who's got the right answer. Or maybe I'll go over the right answers for the ones that most people got wrong. But then next lesson, I say, let's do this quiz again, but just do the ones you got wrong last time and see if we can get them right this time. Yeah? formative. I'm forming their constructs, improving their understanding. I'm changing their understanding. There's a brilliant book, and I cannot recommend it enough, called Embedded Formative Assessment. Towards the back of this section in your pack, there's some stuff that comes from it, written by Dylan William. You must get it for your library and for your own use as well. It's an absolute stunner. It looks, do you remember we said the most important person when it comes to improving students' achievement is the teacher? The most important thing a teacher does is formative assessment. That has more impact on students' achievement than any other factor. We have 10,000 rigorous experiments that tell us so, yeah? And there is nobody who disagrees with this in the whole of education. And believe you me, they argue about things in education, but they don't argue about this, not the researchers anyway. There's some wonderful strategies which I've stolen from Dylan William, which are on pages 31 through to 34 in your pack. And I'd like you to, in a group, if you wouldn't mind, work in groups of about 3, if that's okay. I'd like you to choose one of those 3 criteria there. One of them is, how easy is it for a teacher to use? Maybe you're looking for teaching methods that you can just chuck into a class without a second's thought and away it goes, and yet it's really powerful. Or another criteria is, how adaptable is it? Maybe you want a method that you can use over and over and over again in lots of different contexts with lots of different levels of students on. Maybe you're after ones that are highly effective. Which one would be the most effective for you, for your subject, and so on? What I'd like you to do is to go through those methods. You might not get a chance to read all 12. I wouldn't bother to read number 6 because it's Diagnostic Questions, and we've just done that. You know, like you've just experienced that, so you probably know enough about that one. So you needn't read that one. It's quite a long one too. I'd like you to go through some of the others, and if you find one that meets your criteria, let's say you're looking for useful ones, adaptable ones, and you say, hey, that one's adaptable. I could use that. I can see me using that in my classroom. Then make a note of it. And eventually, if you wouldn't mind, after this, just before lunch or during lunch, could you come up here, and if you thought, this is ease of use, this column here, these are the 12 methods, yeah? This is adaptable, and this is effective. Can you come and write the number, find the number of the method. Say it was number 4 and you thought it was really, really adaptable. Yeah? Can you come here, choose number 4, this is number 4 here. You were doing adaptable, number 4 you thought was adaptable, just put a little tick here for us. And then by the end of today, we'll have a whole string of little ticks there, and we'll be able to see roughly, not all of them because you won't have read them all, but some of the ones that are really adaptable, really ease of use, and really effective. Okay, over to you. You've got about 10 minutes to discuss these, read these through in your teams. Okay. We've said the most important determinant of student achievement is the precise strategy the teacher uses in the classroom. That the strategies that have the biggest impact are those which are formative, which find errors and omissions in students' learning and fix them and get the student to actually improve their understanding. We've seen a whole lot of methods for doing this. Some of them come from the world's expert on formative assessment. Interestingly, they're from teachers who have been trained by him. And over a period of 2 years, and it did take 2 years, yeah, practice with these methods and trial them, and then talked about their attempts to tried them again, talked about it, tried them again, and honed and improved and developed their use of these methods until they were working really well. And after 2 years, these teachers were getting about the same improvement in students' achievement as was achieved in the experiments. And I'm talking about a near doubling of students' attainment. I'll say that again. A near doubling of the rate at which students learn, about students who would have got a C without these methods getting an A with them, if you think A level or if you think GCSE. Students getting distinctions where they would have got a good pass. I mean, I'm talking about massive improvements in students' achievement. Nearly all teaching methods don't have that power. Some have. We now know which ones, thanks to the work of people like Dylan William, Professor John Hattie, and Professor Robert Marzano. This information's only in the public domain in the last sort of 15 years or so. Most people don't know about it. And what I'm hoping you'll do is to go away and try the methods that suit you and your style and your students and your subject, and talk about them back at the ranch and get others to try them and talk about them and trial them until you've made them work. It takes 5 goes to discover whether a teaching method will work for you, and 25 goes with it, with improvement all the time, until you've got a situation where you're using that teaching method to about 80% of your ability eventually. So even after 25 trials with an unfamiliar teaching method, you've still got another sort of 20% of improvement that's going to be available. You won't be absolutely there yet. That's because teaching is so very, very skillful. So many things to think of at the same time. But the best of luck trying those methods out.